Labour talk endlessly about compassion, but we all feel that their compassion always seems to go to the wrong people. Time and time again, they put the rights of illegal immigrants and foreign nationals above the rights of the British public. They defend people who break into our country more fiercely than they defend the women who are sexually assaulted or scared to walk home at night. They bend over backwards for anyone crossing the channel, but the people paying taxes, following the rules, and keeping this country running are often treated like an afterthought. And some Labour MPs don't even seem to value Britain's own history or our traditions. They act as if this country only discovered human rights in 1950 when we signed up to the ECHR. I can tell you that it's nonsense. Britain had rights, freedoms and justice centuries before the ECHR even existed. We built habeas corpus, trial by jury, free speech and parliamentary democracy. This country shaped the very idea of liberty. Yet Labour behave as if everything good here comes from Brussels or Strasbourg, not from Britain itself. And this is the core issue. Labour trust foreign institutions more than they trust the British people. They listen to international courts, international pressure, and international activists, while ignoring the daily reality for workers, families, and the women in this country. And the ideology is the problem, because it always puts Britain second. Women and girls aren't their priority. You can see it in their policies and in their silence. Because Labour is built on an old socialist mindset. You reward dependency, you punish work. They talk about fairness, but they tax working families more while handing out more in welfare. They make it harder to get ahead and easier not to work at all, because their instincts are always to grow the welfare state, expand dependency and take more from working families, rather than make the country safer, more secure and more prosperous. It's a party that talks endlessly about compassion and fairness while hammering workers with stealth taxes like we saw yesterday. A party that expands handouts for those who don't contribute while making life harder for those who do. And on public safety, they're incapable of being honest, refusing to put women and girls first because they're terrified of upsetting their activist base. Now listen, Labour keeps saying they're helping with the cost of living. You have to laugh.
Every time you're online, your money and your identity are at risk. Scams now make up nearly 40% of all crime in the UK. That's thousands of attacks every single day. In Britain, someone has their identity stolen every 2 minutes, leaving victims with wrecked finances and years of stress. The threat is real, and you could be next. ExpressVPN is your shield against criminals. It locks down your devices, hiding your personal information and financial details from hackers, scammers, and anyone else looking to exploit you. So whether you're checking your bank, shopping, or just browsing, ExpressVPN makes you invisible to prying eyes trying to steal your money and your identity. ExpressVPN shields your data with military-grade AES 256 encryption. That's the same standard trusted by the US government to guard classified information. This is the highest level of online security you can get. So don't wait for disaster. Secure up to 14 devices at once and get powerful password protection. Real support is available 24/7 because cybercrime never sleeps. Save up to 73% on annual plans today. Every moment you hesitate is another moment you're exposed. Protect your money and protect your identity. Get ExpressVPN right now.
Because every move they make takes more money out of our pockets. If the government wants real growth, it needs to back British workers and British businesses, not hammer them with new charges all the time. If they really want growth, then we need a welfare system that supports contribution, not dependency. And as we saw yesterday, Labour is moving in the opposite direction. And listen, it's not only Labour. Successive governments have subsidised low wages by importing foreign cheap labour. And that meant spending more on foreigners, on housing, welfare, NHS, all paid for by the British taxpayer. But even worse is that successive governments borrowed so much to keep a broken model alive, a low-skilled, high-import, high-debt economy, instead of backing British industry and rebuilding our workforce. We're amongst the least automated in the G7 because they didn't invest in skills and technology. They relied on foreign cheap labour. And while the government poured billions into a low-wage mass immigration model, local wages stagnated and investment dried up. So young people were left with fewer skilled jobs and no pathway to real careers. And so when you hollow out industry and flood the market with cheap labour, young people lose both incentive and opportunity. The ladder of self-reliance gets kicked away. And we have record youth unemployment. Because right now, billions are being spent to keep people idle rather than giving them a future. That's not compassion. It's control. And it takes us back to the socialist ideology because socialism sells a false comfort. A government big enough to give you everything is big enough to take everything away. Because socialism starts by promising fairness and ends by rationing freedom. And we're seeing it with the digital ID, which eventually will be all your rights that you take for granted now will be conditional on you behaving. They're trying to remove trial by jury. What we really need is a government that values freedom, protects freedom, and has the courage to link welfare to work and reward independence as opposed to dependency. Otherwise, Britain will keep paying the price economically and socially. Instead, we have a government that reaches for the same old answer. Tax the people who actually work, because that's what socialism does. What we saw in this government, it's a government that's also lost the will to reform welfare. And that means it's lost respect for the very people who keep this country alive and carry it on their backs. Yesterday's budget was not one that's best for Britain. What we're effectively paying for is Rachel Reeves' political weakness. Every extra billion in welfare is the price of keeping her backbenchers quiet. Well, I'll end on this. I couldn't care less what happens to her backbenchers. I care about the British taxpayer, the people who actually keep this country going, while Westminster, as usual, protects its own. This is GB News Originals, and I'm Laila Cunningham.